commercials all afternoon.
Well, I mean,
Local realtor Bon Vivant mad about town. The man voted most likely to show up at the opening of an envelope.
what was I voted most likely
Were
to
you?
do?
Were you a most likely guy?
I was an odd teenager, honestly. I mean, I wore like an Indiana Jones hat and a trench coat. I mean, hey, it was the '90s,
It
right?
was.
So,
There you go.
yeah.
I was voted most likely to go unnoticed.
Oh, what was that? No, I think I was voted most creative.
Were you?
Yeah.
Wow, nice.
Yeah, me and Jenny Nimcheski.
Okay. I don't think our school did it. We had like 900 and something kids in our senior class. Yeah, it was pretty much as easy. I think everybody was voted most likely to be lost in a crowd.
Mm.
Yeah.
Well, there was only like 120 kids in my senior class, but right.
You won't talk about an endless graduation ceremony.
Well, I mean,
Yeah.
I went to a Remax Awards banquet once in Denver, and it was kind of embarrassing. So I told all my agents, I'm like, hey, I'm getting this really big, awesome national award. And I mean, so let's go to this banquet. So everybody just dresses to the nines. We get a table like in the nosebleed seats, while all the really, you know, like billionaire kind of offices are up front. And then sat there and essentially waited for, I don't know what it was, like 2 hours of someone just calling names and people walking across the stage for me to kind of do the same waddle as them, you know. And I'm like, oh, this was a waste of time. I'm so sorry, everybody.
Matt, owner broker of
where do I work?
Broker owner.
Yeah.
Remax Partners.
It doesn't make a difference at this point.
Remax Partners Realty of Grinnell, Marshalltown, and Brooklyn.
That's right.
That's in the world.
I don't know about the world.
Yeah.
Marshalltown may be a little bit this weekend though.
Really?
Yeah. So Oktemberfest, if you guys haven't checked that out. Oktemberfest.com, I believe, is our website, and it's with a K. OKTEMBER. We will be, our Marshalltown office will be in that parade all weekend, or this weekend, tomorrow morning. And I know they have live music, and I know they have a kids festival today. And then there's also like a kind of like a lowrider car show, and I mean, it sounds like it's going to be a really big thing. This is our first time participating and kind of sponsoring in it, so.
Oktemberfest.
Mm-hmm.
All right.
Yeah. I know you're not going to make it to Oktoberfest this year.
I missed that vote.
But you might be able to make it to Oktemberfest.
There you go. So, yeah.
And so,
if I show up in my lederhosen, though, will I get in trouble?
I don't think you'll be the only one there in lederhosen.
Think so?
Nah, I mean, it's Marshalltown. Anything's possible.
No, that's true. That could happen on any day, so you never know.
I mean, they let me in the parade, so, I mean, I think you'll be fine.
Okay.
But
that parade, by the way?
I think the lineup starts at, I think it's a morning parade. I think it's like 10 a.m. I believe is about when the parade starts. So I know it's one of the largest parades in Iowa. And so if you want to sit in the parade and see a lot of stuff, this is going to be a huge one. And I think we printed off 200 shirts that we're going to be shooting with our t-shirt gun. God, love that thing. And it's just such a ridiculous piece of equipment, but I mean, I don't know what it is. There's like a different level of satisfaction when there's a t-shirt flying overhead, you know. It's like the national anthem playing. I mean, it's crazy. So so yeah, no, that'll be interesting. And so then our Marshalltown agents, Renee Schleisman, Guadalupe Gomez, and Steph Gwynn will be there, and then Eric and I will be there, and maybe one of our Grinnell agents or one of the Brooklyn agents will be there too. So yeah. Should be interesting.
Should be fun.
Mm-hmm.
All right.
But there's kites over Grinnell tomorrow too, right?
Yeah, there's that as well.
But that's until 4 p.m.
Yeah.
So if you still want to see a massive parade,
and then
go fly your kite.
Yeah.
I mean, You could do both.
You
I'm
can.
going to be doing that.
There you go.
My kid came home from school with his kite in his hand.
Did he?
He's like, "Are we going to kites over Grinnell?" Yeah, I guess we are.
There you go. Good. Right.
That's another great event too.
Yes, it is.
That's the Rotary, I believe, that sponsors that, and really kind of fascinating. That's another fascinating civic organization that really, I mean, there's a lot of people who work really hard at their jobs and then do the Rotary as well. And we kind of stepped into a sponsorship role late last year, earlier this year. It was late last year. And then Bennett Wolfang is our member there, and I've just been really impressed by them, especially when it comes to their chicken barbecue thing, and then once again for the kites over Grinnell. I mean, that really is. There are two massive events that they put together, so go and support them absolutely. And I know they usually have like a kite table there too, right? Where they're like, you can make a kite if you're, for your kid.
They'll have kits available. They also have vendors there. They're going to have free hot dogs and chips.
Free hot dogs.
Jim White going to be burning. Somebody's going to be. I heard of it.
What was that called from Great Outdoors? What do the raccoons call them? Never mind.
Yeah.
But yeah, that sounds awesome.
Yeah.
That sounds totally great.
It should be a beautiful day.
Yes.
Don't pay attention to the weather today.
Oh man, I looked at the weather yesterday and I'm like, oh no, it's going to be a wet parade. And then it took me a solid hour to realize I was looking at the wrong day for weather. So yes, no, tomorrow's going to be lovely. It's going to be really nice.
Good. So what are we talking about today other than stuff?
Lederhosen, hot dogs, and flying hot dogs.
Flying hot dogs. Do you, by the way, absolutely apropos of nothing, but you mentioned the T-shirt gun.
Yeah.
I know that
I don't have a concealed permit for it.
I know there are restrictions on throwing things from. I mean, you have to have walkers.
There's nothing being thrown.
No. Okay.
It's being shot.
It's being shot. So is that how you get around that?
Yeah.
Okay.
It's being shot.
Rather than thrown.
It's going up into the air, and it's landing of its own recognizance. It's an unplanned landing, but. I mean, it's also a T-shirt.
Yeah.
So, I mean, they're really not going to do a lot of damage.
I haven't heard too many.
It'd be like getting into like a fight with a Nerf ball,
I haven't heard of anybody losing an eye to a T-shirt.
Right.
Yeah. So.
Well, it could happen.
It could. Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah.
But no, the throwing candy thing. I know.
They have to do it from walkers, and I didn't know if you had to have somebody walking along with the gun, or you could do it from a vehicle.
Well, that's going to be done from a vehicle. I mean, the part of the T-shirt guns thing that's kind of necessary is to be able to have some distance from the the crowd you're shooting shooting the T-shirt from to, right? Because otherwise it's just going to be like this Darwin natural selection experience, and I don't think we need to be shooting people with it. So. And it's something that's going to be run by adults, either myself or another experienced T-shirt shootist, probably Steph Gwynn, and it's set to a really low velocity because it can shoot an incredible distance. It'll go like 300 feet, and
wow.
Yeah, and it sounds like a potato gun. I mean, it sounds like like something colossal is happening, and so I just turn it all the way down. And it's not an explosive gun, so it runs off of compressed air. And so I'll actually have a generator and an air compressor in the back of like our Polaris Ranger as we go through and do it. Just like we did for Grinnell and Brooklyn and Malcolm's for their parades. And then, and as just like those parades too, all of the T-shirts that we're making, they're all sourced locally. Everything that we do is sourced locally. So, and then those shirts are also made for the city that they're being in. So there's still some like local and civic pride about where they're happening.
Nice.
But no, it's a fun experience, but you do have to be careful. You have to give it some distance. It's kind of a gentle lob. You don't want to go too high, Tim, because right as it goes too high, it's got a long way to come down. And sometimes the T-shirt will open up and drift around, and we want to give people the opportunity to catch it. And if someone's not paying attention, we don't want it to be anything more than like a gentle nudge on the shoulder. So, yeah.
Just curious about that.
No, yeah, It's a valid question, and I'm quite frankly, this is going to be maybe a surprise, but you're the first person to ask.
Really?
Yes.
You see, that's why I'm here. I'm
Because
that
it
guy.
was like one of the first things I was thinking. I'm like, this could be a little dangerous. Maybe we need to be careful about this. And so I spent a day shooting T-shirts into the cornfield to kind of figure it out. But it's pretty fun.
Okay.
Hmm.
Okay.
Yeah.
Taking out all the ghosts
Well,
from the field.
I mean,
If you shoot that, it will come. But anyway,
my mom actually just went to the Field of Dreams like 2 days ago too.
did she?
Hmm.
Nice. Okay.
Yeah.
So,
So
how's the market?
what market?
Yes. Ooh, okay.
It's doing well.
Is it?
Yeah, it's actually.
How bad does that now? The Fed just jacked it up. What now? That's 3/4%.
Hmm.
That is that gonna? Cause we had a story about home prices took a dive, and
Well, it's taken a dive from what, a year ago.
yeah,
So this is part of my whole issue about the way values are going up and down or being talked about. And I think it's really unfortunate because rather than talking about the positive piece of it, which is a rise in inventory and then the rise of equality in a real estate transaction, where that buyer and seller can actually kind of meet on much more common ground and common terms. Um, I mean, that's what we're like, oh my God, the prices are going down and then the rates are going up. And so, yeah, I mean, we end up with a similar kind of piece of like, well, what does that payment look like? It's not going to be dramatically different between a point unless you're really spending a colossal amount of money. Um, but the bigger piece of that to me, which is also really nice, is having that market kind of equalize. And so it's just like we've been climbing a steep hill for a long time. Sooner or later, we're going to have to reach the top and come back down the other end. And I mean that's kind of what this is. So I mean it's not so much just as a market adjustment, but it's kind of like a little bit of a reset. Uh, I know that real estate agents now, and I've experienced this myself, and I was thinking about this actually a couple days ago, which is I actually have to be better at this. I've been used to a market that has been really really a different way of working, and I've really and have pushed to refine so much, some of our methods within that market. And now what we have is a more similar market to what we normally have had for the previous 15 years. And I mean, you have to get back at getting good at that again. You can't you just can't sit there and be like, well, it's going to sell in 24 hours and they're going to receive 10 offers and there's a high chance you're not going to get it. So how much more would you like to offer? You know?
mm.
Now, doesn't that sound horrible? Who wants to be a buyer in that situation? There's a lot more buyers involved in that situation than there is sellers. There's one seller and sometimes as many as 10 buyers. And so, I mean, getting that to be much more equalized where we have, maybe a few buyers pursuing a property and maybe one or two of them actively making offers and getting more sellers to have more properties available, which just kind of evens out really what that supply and demand looked like so that people can make an informed choice. So it's like the used car thing, right? Like, when I traded my last truck in and they basically gave me exactly what I paid for it with, what, 50,000 miles on it. And that's incredible. But that's also because there's a demand issue. There's a supply and demand issue, right? We had less trucks, but we had more people going after those trucks. And granted, for the new truck that I bought, I ended up paying a premium. And so it's passed down at some point, anyways. So even if you did sell your house in that, highly profitable time period, um, and you go to buy one, you end up paying a premium to buy one too, just like the person did who bought your house. And yeah, the interest rate was nice, but I mean, so you can afford to make that payment on that gigantic house. But now instead of that interest rate being so welcoming, we're really looking at more of those prices are starting to kind of level out. and actually find their, the top of market. So I like this market. It's not so much just because, and it's not that predictable, but what it is it gives people the space and the time to be able to make good decisions. You don't have people buying houses without inspections. You don't have people like covering the gaps of what their appraisal will be because maybe something's selling so high because that it's highly competitive, but there's not enough sales in the last year or active listings to show what its appraised value could support. And so, an appraisal may come in low and that buyer might be asked to cover the difference because the lender's not going to. And those are going to be going away. So you're going to end up with really a much more reliable and equitable type of transaction. And we're seeing that right now, too. One of the things that's always a nice kind of reflection of that is the numbers of cancellations in transactions. I know that sounds crazy, right? But that's an important piece too. If that buyer or seller need to cancel or should cancel or want to cancel and they can do that within the terms of their contract, that's great. And that means not so much as somebody being obligated to a purchase that is no longer suitable, but maybe that property doesn't meet the needs anymore. Or maybe the financing contingency was written for a lower interest rate or a larger amount down or something, whatever the case may be. And seeing that is also nice. Seeing some of these cancellations come through, there's only a few things worse than, as far as I'm concerned, for having nobody really wants to have their transaction canceled if you're that seller. But if you're that buyer, that might be the necessary thing. Maybe something bad came up in inspections. But oh wait, let's rewind, 6 months to a year. Oh, they didn't do inspections. All right, well, how severe is the repair? Well, it looked like it was only going to be maybe a couple $1,000, but it turned out to be 30. Oh, crap. But they didn't know that because they didn't get an inspection. You see what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And so having that equality come back to the marketplace is really nice. I really like this. I know it sounds crazy because the total overall volume is actually still on par and comparable to last year, but it's just down slightly. It's not very much, but we still end up with a much better situation, especially when it comes to protecting the public. The public has more options and more things that they can do. And they're buying decisions. Sellers, yes, we're looking at, they may have lost some equity that they would have had to be able to walk away from a transaction with. However, it also was only going to be fruitful if they were just cashing out, right? If they're going to go buy another property, they're just going to reallocate that somewhere else. They're just moving it. It's like, well, hey, I'm making money on my house. Yeah. So now I'm going to go buy this house over here. Like, okay. Oh my God, this house is expensive. And I'm like, right.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And so being on both sides of that coin is, can be a tricky spot. This is a much better market for that. So if you're looking to sell a house and buy one, this is a much more stable market. And chances are of actually getting something that's more of a value purchase and even a high value sale, that's still right now. So, and that's better right now than it was a year ago. So I know that we're looking at some declining values or some declining sales numbers nationally. I do think it's important to remind people too that we are in a very tiny like rural area. We're not in Boston, not in Austin, we're not in Seattle. So we're in kind of a simple place for that. But, yeah. The Twin Cities, another really crazy volatile market too, and I've watched a lot of my friends and even relatives who just like, I can't believe that house sold for that, and now some of those neighborhoods that have had some ways too a lot of gentrify, of people moving in, mass people are moving in because now these prices of homes were less affordable than they even were before, but they were in high demand, and so you actually had some neighborhood rejuvenation from that. What concerns me about those particular like spots where that was happening, or cities, or boroughs, or whatever you want to call them, are okay. Well, if there's further economic collapse, then you need to worry about foreclosures, and then you could be looking at a very targeted map of where those foreclosures could be happening. And so, I mean, hopefully those civic organizations are planning for that on the back end, if that's something that is possible. But yeah, I don't know. What can I say?
Yeah.
Right?
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Well, we'll just have to wait and see.
Yeah.
Wait and see.
Yeah. But no, sales are doing great, and listings are doing great right now too. Actually, having some more time to put some more work into getting listings on the market is another thing that's great. And so, I'm sure that you've looked online, right, and seen like listings that have like one sentence descriptions, like starter home in great location, right?
Yeah.
Or there's one crooked photo from the street.
Oh, I got that. Yeah.
Right. Everybody sees that on like.
Or it's 20 years old.
Right. It's or it's a photo they stole from the assessor's website or something, or off of Google Earth, and it's like you can see the little pins in there. And real estate agents are having to work again, which is good. So.
Spoken like a boss.
I'm just saying, get to work, folks. Come on, kick it in the pants. Let's go. And I mean, that's one of those things about it. I mean, I think it's great because it really shows what the value of an agent is. And I mean, when it comes to that listing right now, critical thing for listing your house right now, you need to have very good virtual media. Everybody who's listing their house, ask your agent, like, what do you have for virtual media? How can somebody view my house without setting foot in it? Are they just looking at your photographs? Are they looking at a virtual tour that's more than just the Ken Burns effect dragging across with someone playing green sleeves in the background?
It works.
No, it doesn't. It's horrible. And or are we looking at like a 360 tour shot with like a spherical camera? Kind of like, it's basically like a GoPro.
And the password is spherical.
Spherical. I wonder if I should say that the P with like a P. Spherical. Or like the PH, the Pahirical. Anyway.
Spherical. Get the shit in
Something really wrong with us. Yeah.
It's Friday, the computer's broke. What the heck?
But 3D tech is absolutely crucial. And it was one of those things that we actually experimented with even further last year. We've had it for a long time. And when people were going to look at houses and they couldn't be there to see them, and the market's so active and it's so competitive, well, how does somebody from California buy a house when they are not going to be able to be there in 6 hours?
Remote drone.
Well, that's basically what we are. We're that drone. And so, and the answer is well, I'm going to just take my 3D equipment and shoot that house. And so we'd run in and we'd shoot the entire house. And so that way, I mean, that buyer can actually have that immersive experience of being able to get in, look around, see as much as they can. And it's not the same thing as being there in person, but it's as close as you're going to get. And that's better than having, 4 or 5 pictures and the one sentence description.
So I got to ask, how do you do the 360 without you getting in the picture?
It's a mechanical process.
Okay.
Which means...
You put the camera on top of your head?
Yeah, no, it's kind of like, those cars that shoot for Google Earth,
mm-hmm.
right? It's just like that, except it's on our head.
Yeah.
No, it's a tripod, and it's got a robotic motor that spins the camera in like fourths. So it'll do 90-degree sweeps. And so every time it makes a sweep, you just step behind the camera and then keep stepping around. So you're just walking in circles essentially the whole time.
Nice. While
that camera's going. Or you go stand around the corner.
Peeking around.
Right. And if somebody really wants to look for an Easter egg, get on some of our virtual tours, and you may see like my phone or Jess's phone sitting there on the counter because we hit a time delay and didn't want to get too far away from the camera to store the image, and then had to run around the corner to do it. But
you got to do it like get one little Where's Waldo outfit, and you just hide.
There's a few, and So it goes,
Giving you ideas.
so no, I've done this. And so it was Larry and Donna Gurman's house. You guys are listening, and you probably are. Um, I sat on your front porch in your swing and doing the Atlas pose for one of this was before we had the 3D tour. We actually used just the 360 tour, and so it would take some serious looking to find me, but I was there. And there was a couple of I think Brad actually I think their grandson actually did see it later on, but yeah, no, it was pretty funny.
There you go.
Yeah. Can I say?
Little Easter eggs.
You got to have a little bit of fun too.
Absolutely. All right. Well, hopefully we'll have a little bit more fun. Hey, hopefully you'll have fun up there at Oktemberfest.
Right.
Tomorrow up in Marshalltown.
So Oktemberfest.com, Oktember Fest. Seriously, Bob Dorr and the Blue Band are playing. I think tonight or Saturday night. I don't recall. And but I mean they have a pretty interesting board. And I'm served on enough boards and helped a lot of different charities over the years where it's really neat seeing what people are made of, and really a fantastic board. I mean, very collaborative, work really well together, and their level of involvement is crazy. I mean, there were people out, at 11 o'clock on Wednesday night, getting parts of this set up, and it was great, really well organized.
All right. Well, we'll look for you tomorrow then.
Okay.
All right. And that'll do it for this edition of Right at Home here on 1410 KGRN. For Matt Carzalotti, I'm Tim Good. We're going to try and do this.
There's your runoff.